super excited today after quite some time of sort of talking about this subject that I think Moses brought to our attention here at our ChiNamo kind of meetup sessions that we have about the Autodesk Data Exchange. So we connected with Lejla Begovic, is that correct?
Yes.
Lejla, did I pronounce that right? I got it.
Yes.
She is joining us from Munich, Germany, and she is with Autodesk, but I would let her kind of tell us a little bit more about herself. Basically, as I'm admitting people here, what we will talk about is kind of introduce Autodesk Data Exchange and the connectors, dive into a little bit on how that works with Dynamo, and then potentially talk about some practical use cases and connecting with Power BI. So Ted just joined us as well, and Ted, you're missing on our background, which you can find in the Teams chat. But anyway, thanks all. It's so nice to see you, for you joined, and I'm gonna let Lejla kind of take it away, and please feel free to fill me in on anything else you'd like to share.
Thanks so much, Sonia, for this great introduction. Hi everyone, I'm Lejla. I am a product manager on the Data Exchange team. I've been with Autodesk for more than 10 years now. Before that, I used to be an architect and a BIM specialist. I worked a lot with Revit and then specialized in data interoperability, especially IFC and OpenBIM. And I joined at the Autodesk in 2015 and used to be a technical sales specialist for quite a long time, working on various topics related to BIM, including Dynamo and of course data interoperability, OpenBIM and IFC. And last October I joined the Data Exchange team as a product manager, to explore data interoperability from another perspective. And yeah, I'm looking forward to give you a brief introduction into what the Data Exchange is and especially how it works in the context of Dynamo.
Awesome.
Okay, then I would share my screen, and obviously you will receive all the slides if you want, so this can be openly shared, and we will also have data sets that can be shared.
Oh, great.
Okay, so sorry, I just lost Teams.
Ah.
Too many windows open. Okay, but now here we are. So, as mentioned, I am an architect and product manager, and I also occasionally blog and make some YouTube videos relating to, in the first line to data interoperability, data exchange, IFC, and sometimes a little bit of Dynamo. And there is also a blog post about the workflow I will show you today on my blog. So before we start, because I am an Autodesk employee and we will talk a little bit about roadmap and the future and some beta features, I need to show the safe harbor statement. It basically says, I'm sure you've already seen it 1,000 times, that the purchasing decision should never be made based on beta software or any roadmap items, because obviously these are not carved in stone and plans can change. Now that we have clarified that, I would like to give you a brief intro to what data exchange is. So we all know that data interoperability is not that easy. So there are a lot of challenges. What do you share? How much do you share? IFC export. If you are working with IFC, you know how difficult it can be, to map the properties. There are ways to do that. So IFC is a great format, but you have to know how to use it. And there are a lot of use cases we see every day where users are simply struggling to share just the data that is needed in a simple way that can be used by the other side easily. So what we say on the data exchange team is basically, what if exchanging data was as seamless as sending a text message? I don't need to worry about which phone you have. I don't need to worry about, do you have an iPhone or an Android? I can just send you a message. I can include a photo, whatever I want, and it simply works. And the way we do it in data exchange is basically we break up files into subsets of granular data. So granular data is something that the whole Autodesk data vision is based upon. So we are breaking huge files into granular data that is stored on the ACC in the cloud, and that can basically be accessed through the APIs or through various services in a much easier way without the need to have the authoring software, or to download the whole file and to work with the proprietary data. So what we do with data exchange is basically we take the original file, then we extract a subset of data that is needed for a specific workflow. That subset is a data exchange which is stored on the ACC, and then that subset can be loaded and updated and used by our data connectors. By doing so, this data can be used for the coordination, documentation, dashboards, and also other workflows. So basically, how does that look like? We share only what's needed. So if someone needs the roof design, what we can do is basically really share just this part or this part of the building that is related to this roof, and that can be done very simply and easily through a data exchange connector. And we have a lot of data exchange connectors at the moment. So we have the so-called cloud connectors. I will show them to you in a minute as well. So basically on Docs, we can create data exchanges from Revit files. And we also have the Microsoft Power Automate, which we can use to automate certain things. For example, to extract data from data exchanges like a room book, a door schedule. Every time a new data exchange is published, you simply get the list updated, for example, or you can also set it up to get notifications on Teams or Slack. Then we have our generally available connectors. So the connectors for the desktop software are basically plugins which you download and install, and then you can use them out of the software. The ones which are not in the beta anymore, which are generally available, are the Microsoft Power BI and the Revit connector. And then we also have 3 connectors for Inventor, Rhino, and Tekla, which are currently still in the beta, but are being released very, very soon. And then we have a bunch of other beta connectors on the right side. So the IFC connector, which is also a cloud connector. It works on top of Docs as well, similar to the Revit connector. We have an AutoCAD 3D connector, and of course the Dynamo connector, which we will have a closer look at today. And before we look at the Dynamo connector, I just want to briefly show you how data exchange actually works, because we have now just seen some slides, but it's always easier to see how it actually works. So let's say an architect wants to share just a specific area of the building. For example, like this section at the level which is controlled by the section box. So he can either publish this view through the connector, which you see here. So this would be the Data Exchange connector when used out of Revit. However, he can also use the ACC. So this is the same file saved on ACC. And we can create a data exchange out of every published 3D view. So we need to have a published 3D view on ACC, and then you can simply go ahead and say create data exchange. This is available for all Revit files starting with Revit 2024. So if you have an older file, you will need to upgrade it first. Here we can then simply select a folder, give the data exchange a name, and now this what you see here is the created data exchange. So we have only shared this specific subset of data, like this level, and the recipient is not able to see the rest of the building because he only requires this area. And this file can now be referenced inside of Revit, inside of Tekla, Inventor, and so on. So with every connector we have seen before, this file can be used. So this is basically like the most simple workflow on ACC. If we go ahead to IFC, so I know IFC is more of a European thing, but still I wanted to show you how this can be used as well. So this is a beta. Currently it needs to be activated for the projects where you want to use it. However, we are working on making it available for all new projects on ACC. So if you want to have it activated in the meanwhile, feel free to reach out to me. And you simply need to share this long number in the URL, which is the project ID, and then we can activate it. So what this connector allows you is a little bit different from the Revit connector, because here you can filter down to find only the elements that you really need, that you really want to load, for example, into Revit, into Power BI, into Tekla. So you don't want this entire file. You just need, for example, in this case, the walls. So we can scroll through the IFC classes and then select the walls, and then also filter them according to their material or other properties. So here, for example, we are filtering according to the fire rating. And then we can create a data exchange, which is again stored on docs. For this, you really require, so for all the data exchange workflows, you require only the docs license. And one thing to be noted is that data exchanges have this small icon, which is like the two opposite arrows. And they always have a size of 0 bytes because they are not files, they are subsets of granular data. They can also not be downloaded to your hard drive because they can only live on docs, because only docs is able to understand this data model which is behind it. So this means once the data exchange is created, I can view it on docs like any other file. And the great thing about these cloud connectors is basically that when the source file is updated, so we have now uploaded the version 2 of the IFC file, then the data exchange will also be updated. So you will always have the access to the latest versions. And data exchanges, when loaded into Revit, they are behaving in a different way than, for example, a linked IFC, because they are loaded as direct shapes, but you also you have the correct Revit categories, so you are able to schedule them to use them for documentation in a much more flexible way. And they are also visible on ACC, so because they are really a part of the file, and they are a lightweight. They are not a link, but they are a lightweight part of the file which you can always update to the latest version, though they live in the project file itself. And of course, the same data exchange can also be loaded into a Power BI. So in Power BI, you can use the same data exchange to analyze the data and even to share the dashboards with others who might not have the access to the ACC or not the skills to work with a file and analyze the data themselves, but you can simply share the dashboard which has been prepared for them. Then the last video I want to show you before we dive into the live demo and have a look at the Dynamo connector is how this can look in a project. So we know the AC project often have a lot of stakeholders. And what we do with Data Exchange is simplifying this data sharing. So as we have already seen before, in this case, the architect working in Revit can easily create a view which then is shared as a data exchange and only contains the elements that were visible in this view. Then in Rhino, this data exchange can be loaded and used as a reference. So data exchanges are always a reference at the moment, at least, but you can grab the geometry and use it then as a reference, for example, like here, to create this facade design in Rhino using Grasshopper. And now this facade can then again be shared as a data exchange through the Rhino connector now with the other stakeholders. And then the Revit designer again is able to load this data exchange without worrying where does it come from, you know, does it have the right format and so on. You can simply load it and again you will have the data and you are able to use it in all the views and schedules and reference it in drawings. Then the same data exchange can also be loaded in another connector, like in this case, in the Inventor. So, and of course, all data exchanges can also be used in the Power BI again to aggregate the data and also to create a dashboard for all the other stakeholders who are not necessarily using a BIM software. So this is like a very quick overview of data exchange. Are there any questions so far, or should I just continue? Okay, I'll just continue and we can have some time later for questions. So before we go ahead and look at the connectors, I wanted to call out that the Autodesk has two granular data concepts which are somewhat similar, and data exchange is one of them. The AC data model you might have heard of is basically a very similar concept, but it is more like living in the background. It is not based on subsets like data exchange, but it is more like basically at the moment your entire Revit file. In the future, this will be there will be also other data formats supported, but at the moment, if you are using the ACDM, you can basically extract all the data, or ACDM also automatically extracts all the data from your Revit files into this data model. And then you are able to access this data through the API. So you don't need Revit to extract a door schedule, for example. You can just use the API to extract this door schedule. And Data Exchange is somewhat similar. It's just that we also have this .NET SDK and the possibility to connect to other software applications through this and share subsets of data. And in the future, the vision is basically that the Data Exchange will continue to serve for data interoperability when we want to share subsets of data, and the ACDM is something that you will use if you want access to everything in a Revit file, or in the future also in other BIM files. Why am I explaining you this now? Because we have two packages. One is for the AC data model and one is for Data Exchange. And the one for the AC data model basically uses this GraphQL API, which is a very lightweight API and gives you the possibility to read data. At the moment, we cannot write back data through this package. We can only read it. But for example, you can access your entire Revit model that has been converted to the ACDM, or we can also access the data exchanges in the same way, because the GraphQL API is very similar, and then you can use these data to compile Excel sheets to do with it whatever you need inside of the Dynamo environment. And then the other package lets you create and load data exchanges. This is the package we will have a closer look at today. So this one is very similar to what you have seen before for Revit, Inventor, Tekla, and so on. It is based on the .NET SDK and lets you create and load data exchanges, but through the Dynamo environment. So this is basically just for a differentiation. For at the moment, when we work with the Data Exchange connector, we can create and load geometry and data. The data connector for ACDM and Data Exchange, that one is based, as mentioned, on the GraphQL API. It only supports the metadata. So we won't get any geometry at the moment through that connector. This one is really like for analyzing the metadata, extracting door schedules, and so on, if you don't need any geometry. To get started with the connectors, you can search for them on the Autodesk App Store. However, since they are, since the Dynamo connectors are still in the beta, you will be sent, if you click on this open link, you will be sent to our public beta community, which you can join, and there you can download the Data Exchange for Dynamo and also the data connector for Dynamo for the GraphQL API. And the currently supported versions are 2023, 4, and 5. We are working on the connector for 2026. Since this is a beta and there have been some significant improvements in the 2025 version, I would recommend you to use the 2025 version in every case, because the 2023 and 4 have some limitations. If you are, I wanted to show this later, but never mind. If you are attending the Autodesk University, you can you can arrive at a earlier, and I think you can still register for the Dynamo and APS hackathon. If not, you can reach out to me. I can send you the link and we can see if it is already full. But if you are around, I'm sure you can drop by and engage in this hackathon. Now let me briefly show you how that works in Revit and which workflow I have prepared for you here. So as mentioned, the Data Exchange connector, so the one for Revit, would be in the Collaborate tab, and here you see the Data Exchange tab if you have installed the Data Exchange connector for Revit. Since we are using a Dynamo, I will go into Dynamo and show you basically when I install these connectors, I will have these two folders. We have a documentation online. I will share some links shortly. There are two folders because the first one is more related to the general data exchange nodes, and the second one are the property nodes. So with data exchange, we are able on the one side to work with the Revit properties, but also with the Forge parameters. So the APS parameters in the cloud. That is kind of a little bit more complex topic because when we write data exchanges to the cloud, we basically need to create the Forge parameters as well. But with these data exchanges, we have with this data exchange package, it is actually quite easy. The workflow I have prepared here, and I also have a blog article on this, was created at the last Dynamo hackathon during the DevCon in May, where we have explored ways to include rooms in data exchanges. So in the past, we were not able to create data exchanges from invisible elements, right? And rooms are not visible in 3D. So up to Revit 2026, when we create data exchanges from Revit, everything that is visible in the view will also be included in the data exchange, and also the room data, but not the room geometry. This has been changed in Revit 26, so the new Revit 2026 connector can now also export room geometry, but for that we really needed to work with the Revit team to change something on the Revit API itself in order to be able to do this. So the workflow for Revit 2025 would be, as an example, basically to get all the rooms, so all elements of the category rooms, and then basically collect their geometry and the parameters. These are the standard Dynamo nodes, I'm sure you all know. So this is nothing new. And where we start using the data exchange nodes is basically here on the other side. I will run this graph so that we get the room geometry in the background and so on, so that we can start working with it. And okay, here we go. So now we have the element geometry of the rooms, and we also have the parameters. So what we are doing then is basically we are creating the properties out of the parameters. So this is somewhat something that is required for data exchange, because when we are creating a data exchange, we need to use this node by geometry and properties, and this one is defined like you need to provide a list of the geometries, and then in the other input you need to provide a list of the properties. And this node is also something that we have here in the property nodes, so you can basically create property nodes by Revit parameters. Once we have compiled these, we get the data exchange data, which we can then send to the data exchange. Something that is, so we are aware that this is a beta and it is not entirely working always in this intuitive way that a Dynamo has, right? So we have this get exchange node, which creates or even loads data exchanges. So it can load or create, and it depends on what you select first, what this node will be. So this is really not user-friendly, but once you know what you need to do, it is actually quite easy. So I will say I want to create a data exchange, and in that case, it will open my connector, which will look very similar like all the other connectors, and then I can pick a folder on my, so I can, I have many hubs and many projects, so apologies, but we have actually created this connector in a way that it's really quite easy to find, so you can even search. And this new UI is really very good to work. So I will simply, or I have a Dynamo folder, so I will create it here. And then I can give it a name. I will just use it, leave the same name. And then I need to say create exchange. Now the exchange is created and it's still an empty exchange. But what I can do now is I can connect these guys here. So you see the send node, which sends this data to the data exchange, has an exchange node, which is weirdly, yeah, it is an input basically that will now, if I run the node, create, fill this data exchange which I previously created with data. This node always somehow gives an error, but it should work nevertheless. So now we can go ahead and see this data exchange is still processing, so we can have a look at it in a minute. I can open the other data exchange I have previously created. As mentioned, you can review these elements on ACC. You can also view the properties. So you need to be careful sometimes when you are selecting in the viewer, then you select only the geometry node and not the actual container. So the properties are attached on the container level. So we can basically see all the data here. And then we can load this very same data into Power BI. So how this is done, I can also quickly show you. So you would, the fastest way is just to copy the link here. You can go through the folders in the Power BI connector as well, but as you have seen, I have many folders and projects, so I will use the URL. And what you can do here is you also first need to install the data connector for Power BI. That one can also be found on the App Store. And then you can go ahead and say get data, search for Autodesk. We can take the Autodesk connector for Power BI. This is the one we want. The Autodesk Construction Cloud is loading the data from the assets, the issues, and so on. So this can also be used together with Data Exchange, but in this case, we will just use Data Exchange, and then I can use the URL here. If I don't have the URL on the next screen, I would see all my hubs and projects, and I could just browse to find my Data Exchange. But in this case, I'm just using this view, and then it brings me directly to my Data Exchange I have previously created, and then in a moment we will see the data here. And then we will be able to build the dashboard in the same way we would basically do with any other dashboard. So now it's been loaded. The only special thing is that you get to get the Autodesk visual again, so the viewer. So I will just again search for Autodesk. There is the viewer here, which we can grab and add. It will appear here. And when you add the viewer visual, you will also see that you need to search for viewer and then external element ID for the other fields. So we go for viewer and then external element ID. External element ID is important so that the connection to the other visuals works as well. So now you can see we have the file here in the viewer, and if we want to add other visuals, we can basically just, for example, let's take the pie chart and say, I think the room names should be names, right? Okay, this was maybe not the right visual for that. We might want to use the list, but that's basically, okay, so it's the other name. That's basically how it would work. And then if we select, a name of something, then that would be also selected in this case. And the other dashboard which I have shared with you is set up in such a way that you can, for example, here we also have the names, but organized in a better way. And as you can see here, you have the direct connection. So whenever you select something, it is also selected across the visuals. And basically, to summarize everything, the advantage of using Data Exchange in the context of Dynamo is that you are not limited to the options we provide you in the connector, for example, in the Revit connector, but you can really selectively work with the data, manipulate the data before creating a data exchange, or load the data and then manipulating before pushing it into Revit. For example, you could add some data to the door schedule or to the rooms before you exchange it with someone else, and that would basically be the main workflow where you are able to also enrich the data in the Dynamo environment before creating a new data exchange or after loading a data exchange. So that's it from my side. Any questions? Any thoughts?
This is great. Thank you. I'm going to quickly just what comes to mind is so when we have a two-way connection, you said something like, okay, you can make changes to the data. Would you be using Dynamo to feed that back?
So
into Revit, or how would that work?
Basically, if you want to make change, so I think it is important to differentiate that at the moment we cannot change data exchanges with other tools than the source. So it is always a subset of the original file at the moment. So we know that there are a lot of workflows that it would be great if someone shares a data exchange with you, then you can add some data to it.
Uh-huh.
At the moment, we cannot do that.
Gotcha.
You would need to provide a new version of the data exchange from the source file. Only
Okay.
the original source tool is able to update the data exchange, but you could load the data exchange with Dynamo, add some data, and then create a new data exchange.
Okay. That's
That
the
is kind of
workflow. Yeah.
an enriched data exchange.
Right. Okay. That makes sense.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So for the Power BI integration, a lot of times I use the Power BI service where you publish the Power BI dashboard online. Are you able to update the Power BI information in the dashboard if you refresh the data exchange or make changes to the file?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So at the moment, you have to update. So when the data exchange is updated, you can update it by opening Power BI desktop and updating the data source. Microsoft also offers the auto update, if you are asking about that, which basically runs on the cloud. So you can activate auto update on the Microsoft side for certified connectors. Our connector, unfortunately, is at the moment not certified because Microsoft has closed the certification program since a year almost. They are revamping the whole certification, and they are supposed to reopen it in September, so next month. And we are definitely eager to certify our connector to enable this functionality of the auto updates as soon as possible. But at the moment, you would need to open Power BI at a desktop and then simply refresh the data exchange, the data source, and you would load the new data exchange. And as mentioned, you can use the Power Automate to get the Teams notification or a Slack notification when there is a new version available. So
that Power Automate can tell me when there's a new version of the data exchange available. Then I can open Power BI desktop and refresh Power BI desktop data source and then publish that version of the dashboard.
yeah.
And as long as I go back to the source of the data exchange, I can update the data exchange.
Yes, yes. You can always update the data exchange from the source. If you create data exchanges from ACC, so from Revit or IFC files, then the data exchange will automatically update when you update a source file to a new version. So when you publish a new version of a Revit file or upload a new version of the IFC file. And if you are using the desktop connector, so the connectors in the desktop tools, then you can use the option in the connector to update the data exchange. So you see all the data exchanges created from this file you have open in the connector, and you can simply say update this data exchange, and then it will be also updated on ACC.
Okay, if I can be greedy, I want to ask one more question.
Yeah, fine.
Sure.
The data exchange for IFC. I have to start with a published IFC file. There's no way to start with a Revit file and change it to IFC format in the process. Like, can I do that in Dynamo and then make a data exchange?
No, so you would need to export an IFC first. But why? I'm just curious. So, in which workflow would you like to go from Revit to data exchange to IFC, or you would like to export an IFC from a data exchange?
I would like to export the IFC from Revit and work with the IFC file. Personally, I prefer the semantics of the IFC file, like the way you're able to. Yeah, I think it's like more human readable. Instantly, when you can, like you were able to automatically go to the fire rating of the different properties in the IFC file. So I think it has some advantages when working with the IFC file. So I was wondering if there's a way, I guess there's probably an export node within Dynamo where maybe it will export that type of file, then pick it up back up in Dynamo and then make the data exchange.
Yeah, I think for exporting IFCs from Revit, I'm not aware that there is really a reliable Dynamo package doing that. There are ways to automate that on APS, but nothing out of the box. But that's definitely an interesting workflow. So we are exploring a better integration of IFC and AC data model and also data exchanges. So we are looking into these workflows or how to more seamlessly connect the data in the future.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm good. Thank you so much again. I think this is great. And we might be reaching out, I guess, if something does come up. But yeah, I think otherwise we can conclude. So thanks again for everyone who joined, and we're gonna send a link of this. And Lejla, if you'd like me to include any additional materials in that, thank you so much. We're gonna just post them onto our meetup page and kind of share. Is it okay to share your contact as well there? I mean, I think whatever you send us, we'll post. And
yeah, I will. I'm just about to create a link to the PowerPoint file, and I will share it with you. And you are free to share it with anyone interested.
Awesome! Thanks so much.
You are welcome. Thank you all.
All right, bye.
Thank you very much. That was great.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. And if anyone is at the Autodesk University in Nashville, feel free to say hi.
Awesome.
I'll be there.
Great. See you there, Moses.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.